Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan live. Status Coup, October 6th, the year 2022. A lot going on. Good news for a change. So that's exciting. Joining me, the late, great, well, not the late, the great
Not
Tina
late yet.
Yeah.
I'm working on that, Jordan.
Yeah.
Not quite there yet.
I told you I wasn't sleeping. Tina Desiree Berg, the extraordinary independent journalist. And right after this stream, we will have another great episode of Right Wing Insanity Report coming up. We'll promote it later when we have
Yes.
a bigger audience. Quite a lot to get to. I mean, Biden smoking a doobie. Elon Musk.
Also smoking a doobie.
Yep. Elon Musk. Fires everywhere around at Amazon warehouses. Yeah. And interestingly enough, when news comes out that Biden is pardoning all federal offenses of marijuana possession, a story comes out that federal agents have enough evidence, they believe, to indict his son, Hunter Biden. So the timing on that was quite interesting. So we'll get to it all. Please smash that like. I was about to say, please smoke that doobie. Please smash that like button.
Where's Tommy Chong? Where is he?
I know. Well, maybe now. He said he'll be my acid.
There you go.
What do they call that? The guide. He said if I come out there, he would guide me. So I might go to that cherry tree that he was talking about in our interview on 420. By the way, if you've never seen that interview on 420 that I did with Tommy Chong, you got to do it. It was biblical, spiritual, all sorts of crazy with Tommy Chong. So, Tina, before we get to anything, what's up with you? Because obviously your beat is booming. I mean, before we came live, I think a Proud Boys, one of the top Proud guys pled guilty to seditious conspiracy from January 6th. I feel like every hour on the hour, the Oath Keepers trial, the Proud Boys, the things that you've been really covering for years are blowing up in the news right now.
They are blowing up in the news. But, I think above and beyond that, what we're seeing on the street right now in regards to, and in fact, not to plug right-wing insanity report, but this is what the topic is today. They've all taken up running for local offices and being more involved in local politics, and that has sort of blossomed into a lot of these protests against school boards, running for school board positions and whatnot. And so every other day now here in California, and I'm sure this is true across the country, we're having these guys show up at school board meetings, in front of hospitals. I mean, we had the situation, obviously, at Boston Hospital a couple of weeks ago, but they're planning a big protest outside of a pediatrician conference tomorrow in Anaheim. So they're all going to show up. They're coming in from Arizona for that. So this is their new arena, so to speak, where they're fighting the fight. And it's kind of concerning to me because this is involving areas where you do have children present, whether it's at the school board meetings, a pediatrician conference, like these are not places where there should be political violence, but here we are.
Right. Absolutely. Well, let's give the people a little less violence, something to celebrate here.
Yes. For smoke, man. I mean, I smoked a lot of shit before, man. But goddamn, man, that's heavy shit.
We'll be playing that throughout the broadcast. So, listen, very critical when we need to be of the Democratic Party, which is usually every day. But President Biden, a major credit to him. Biden announces pardons for thousands convicted of federal marijuana possession. Reading from ABC News. President Joe Biden on Thursday announced he's pardoning all Americans who've been convicted of simple marijuana possession under federal law, coming closer to keeping a 2020 campaign promise, one of the few that he's kept, to decriminalize the drug a little more than a month before the midterm election. The executive action will benefit 6,500 people with prior federal convictions and thousands of others charged under the District of Columbia's criminal code, according to senior administration officials. This is what he tweeted. Quote, As I said when I ran for president, no one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana, Biden tweeted in an unusual video statement. It's
Yeah.
legal. It's legal in many states, and criminal records for marijuana possession have led to needless barriers to employment, housing, and educational opportunities. And that's before you address the racial disparities around who suffers the consequences. While whites and black and brown people use marijuana at similar rates, black and brown people are arrested, prosecuted, and convicted at disproportional rates.
Yeah.
So, you know, it doesn't sound like a lot, 6,500, but it's a lot of people if it's kind of screwed up your present and future. Not to mention part of what he's doing is, let me just go to the actual tweet. If you could pull that up. This is the third tweet, Colin. Second, I'm calling on governors to pardon simple state marijuana possession offenses, just as no one should be in federal prison solely for possessing marijuana. No one should be in local jail or state prison for that reason either. Third, we classify marijuana at the same level as heroin and more seriously than fentanyl. It makes no sense. I'm asking Secretary Becerra and the Attorney General to initiate the process of reviewing how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. That's the part I don't really. This is like, well, let's create a committee to study. You know,
they should just reschedule it. Honestly, they should just decriminalize all of it, in my opinion. But
we don't need a process to review. I mean, come on.
We already know the war on drugs has failed miserably. It hasn't lowered the rates of drug usage. All it's done is put bodies in prison, created a black market, created an arms race between law enforcement and traffickers that has resulted in unbelievable amounts of violence. And people continue to use drugs. It has not abated that in any way, shape, or form. It's an absolute failure.
Absolutely. So he said, I'd also like to note that as federal and state regulations change, we still need important limitations on trafficking, marketing, and underage sales of marijuana. I don't really get the trafficking part. I mean,
I don't need to legalize it. I don't even think we should go beyond decriminalizing pot. It should just be legalized.
We traffic alcohol. So anyway, but I mean, this is Crime Bill Joe. I'll take a victory. And by the way, the crime bill and, you know, the war on crime and the crime bill, tough on crime things did affect people. People were put in prison for marijuana too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, in some
Especially
ways,
if you're in a state that has like a third strike policy like we had for decades here in California.
Right. So in some ways, you know, he's righting some wrongs that he helped usher in. But either way, it is a win. I feel this whole study thing, let's study the process. Listen, if Republicans retake the House, possibly the Senate.
That's the end of that, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that moving it from Schedule 1.
Jordan, follow me on this. I would say Republicans use drugs at the same rate that anybody on the left does. So you would think that there'd be some pressure coming from their voters, but I don't know.
Exactly. So I think this is a great thing. You know, personally, I mean, I've smoked weed in my life. I'm not like an avid smoker, but it just never made any sense. It's a plant. I still don't know anyone who's ever overdosed on marijuana. I don't think that's a thing. And the reality is, and there's been research and studies about this, the reason that they have kept marijuana as a criminalized marijuana is because in many ways, marijuana would be a really serious competitor to big pharma. I mean, it's not a cure-all for every ill, but marijuana is very, very helpful for a lot of things that big pharma makes a lot of money off of, whether depression, anxiety, muscle pain, stomach problems. One of my brother's best friends had Crohn's disease, and marijuana was basically his, life-saving medicine.
Cancer patients.
Yeah.
I would say it was originally criminalized, though, for different reasons. I think that's what's perpetuating it in the realm of staying criminalized. But I think, follow me on this, I'd be curious if you agree with this. I think part and parcel to why it became criminalized was because it was part of the counterculture. It was Nixon that began this war on drugs, and they wanted to crack down on the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement, all of these sort of, quote unquote counterculture movements born of that period. And drugs were associated with that. So I think that they found the use of marijuana to be threatening in that way because it was anti-establishment.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, the capitalist class, they don't want the people high all the time and happy. We need you working. We need you miserable. We need you desolate. Not, and, obviously that's a caricature. Not everyone who smokes pot is like super high. Some people, it just gives you like an even keel, whatever. But I think it's a great thing. And by the way, on the politics, it kind of looks like John Fetterman had a big part of this. If you could show the tweet, John Fetterman tweeted, "We did it, Joe." And why that is important is because when Biden was coming to an event for Fetterman, I think it was last month, Fetterman put out like a press release basically calling on him to decriminalize marijuana. And that was kind of bold because Biden was coming to speak for him. And Fetterman called him out, diplomatically, but it's time for the president to do, the obvious. So Holly Otterbein with, I think, Politico, she tweeted, "John Fetterman got a heads up today from the White House that Biden was going to pardon marijuana offenses and review how it's scheduled. A person familiar tells me Fetterman talked with Biden for 20 minutes last month in Pittsburgh, where Fetterman urged him to deschedule pot." So it's not like John Fetterman was the first person to probably tell Joe Biden to do this, but maybe he made a convincing political argument. I don't think Biden...
It's possible.
Yeah, I don't think Biden has any core ideology like that he thinks marijuana is. I think Biden just throughout his career has kind of gone as the wind goes. And hey, between the student...
Yeah, true. But let's talk about the Obama administration. He was prosecuting federal drug charges even after California legalized it in the state. So there's always been that tension.
Absolutely. And by the way, smash the like button like you're smoking a doobie. Almost 200 people watching. Only 100 have pressed that like button. I need everybody. Press that like button. Super chats. I really need you. I'm not going to lie. A little stagnant right now here at Status Coup. So if you could support us, make a big difference. FYI, I am currently trying to line up a cameraman so I could go up and cover a rally on Monday in Albany. 1 week away. We're going to cover it later in the show, but 1 week away from the second Amazon union election, this one in Albany. So I'm hoping to go up to Albany on Monday and cover that rally. So we need your support financially, super chats, or sign up as a member. So I just want to show the numbers, and this is from like a decade ago, so it's probably worse. This is from the ACLU. Marijuana arrests by the number. Half of drug busts are for pot. Most of the people police are arresting are not drug kingpins, but rather people with small amounts of pot. 52% of all drug arrests in 2010 were for marijuana. My guess is it's about the same, if not more now. According to the ACL's original analysis, marijuana arrests now account for over half of all drug arrests in the U.S. Of the 8.2 million marijuana arrests between 2001 and 2010, 88% were for simply having marijuana. Nationwide, the arrest data...
88%. Wow.
Nationwide, the arrest data revealed one consistent trend: significant racial bias. Despite roughly equal usage rates, blacks are 3.73 times more likely than whites to be arrested for marijuana. And this was, I think, numbers a decade ago. So take that for what it's worth.
It's probably similar now. It sounds about like on par.
But, I'll credit Joe Biden where we should credit him. I mean,
this was a good move. It's a step in the right direction. Absolutely.
But, the proof will be in the pudding. People need to stay on him because they, calling
we don't
for
need to study. We needed to just to schedule it, like you said.
Yeah, calling for the director of health and hospital, the health department, Javier Becerra, to schedule it. Well, that sounds like we're going to schedule it like we're going to raise the minimum wage, in the year 21, 22. We need, activists need to stay on him. And the other thing is, maybe Fetterman made the case because profit is all they care about. Hey, this is one step to legalizing it. Hey, there's a lot of states and local municipalities that are hurting financially. This is one step to legalizing it, and that would be a major taxable source of income.
Tax boom. Yeah, I mean, it did wonders in the state of California.
Yeah. So they might be looking at it like that. The same way that, these fossil fuckers, people have been lobbying them, showing them you could actually make equal, if not more, on renewables and wind. So sometimes with the plutocrats and the bourgeoisie, a moral argument is not going to help them, or it's not going to work.
One might, though.
An economic one might. So we'll see what happens. But listen, one more time for those in the back.
I was in that shit, man. I never had no dope like that before in my life, man. That's the heaviest shit I ever smoked, man. I mean, I smoked a lot of shit before, man. But goddamn, man, that's heavy shit. Goddamn, I was in that shit, man. I never had no dope like that before in my life, man. That's the heaviest shit I ever smoked, man. I mean, I smoked a lot of shit before, man. But goddamn, man, that's heavy shit.
Not a joke. Not a joke. Not a joke. Not a joke. Not a joke.
That's so funny.
That's very good news. Biden deserves credit. And by the way, you will be able to tell who actually is an intellectually genuine YouTube person by our people that 99.9% of the time criticize Biden and the Democratic Party because that's their shtick and that's what gets them clicks. Will they give him credit for this? If they won't,
probably not.
If they won't, they're just playing to a right-wing audience and it's not really about core principles. Because leftist YouTubers should be crediting him for this, should say this is a good thing. Doesn't matter doesn't mean you love Joe Biden or everything else is erased. But on this thing, he deserves credit. Listen, if Nancy Pelosi came out tomorrow wearing a Medicare for All shirt and calling on Biden to do it, I'd give her credit, whether it was sincere or not. So, I mean, I care about the policies, not the personalities. Biden's still a warmonger. He's still corrupt. But hey, if he's going to get case by case correct,
but
you got to give him credit.
The same crew that's like with Trump, broken clock is right twice a day. Well, I mean, that's true of anybody, isn't it? Like if you're going to give that latitude to somebody like Trump, give it to everybody. Point being that it's about the core principles. It's about doing the right thing and give credit where credit is due as opposed to just playing team sports. Yeah.
And by the way, you will definitely see campaign ads now in certain districts about this. You'll have you'll have people who have been in prison for marijuana violations, crediting Biden, crediting the Democrats. So if
this was
that
good move for the candidacy too. Absolutely.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. So that's story number one. Moving on. Elon Musk, also a friend of the marijuana, excuse me. Listen, I can't fucking follow this Twitter shit. I thought that was
like maybe a new nickname.
Yeah, well, him and Rogan were smoking pot and that tanked Tesla stock for a hot minute. But Elon Musk, it's like every day is a different thing with, is he buying Twitter? Is he not buying Twitter? Right. Are they accepting it? Are they not? Is this all like a game that he wants to buy Twitter? Well, the latest, yesterday or the day before was it's back on. He's going to buy it. Twitter's you're going to let him buy it. Their court thing is not going to happen. It just so happens that Elon Musk suddenly it was back on after text messages of his got released because him and Twitter were going to court, and as part of that, they had access to his text messages, and some of them came out. I mean, nothing so outrageous, but basically showing how the capitalist sausage is made. Some stuff about his ex-wife was in text messages. So it's possible that he just said, fuck it, I'm buying Twitter because I don't want more text messages coming out. But the latest, this is from Associated Press. Musk lawyers say Twitter is refusing his new $44 billion bid for the company. Elon Musk lawyers said Thursday that Twitter is refusing to accept the Tesla billionaires' renewed $44 billion bid for the social media company and are asking a Delaware court to halt an upcoming trial. So that's what I'm saying. I think it's very important to him that this trial does not proceed because it's kind of be careful what you wish for. I don't want all these texts coming out. Musk made a renewed offer to take over the social media platform earlier this week, hoping to end a protracted legal dispute that began when Musk tried to back out of the April deal and Twitter sued. Representatives for Twitter did not immediately respond to messages for comment. Twitter said earlier this week that it intends to close the deal at the agreed-upon price, but the two sides are still booked for an October 17th trial in Delaware over Musk's earlier attempts to terminate the deal. On Wednesday, the judge presiding over the case said she will continue to press on towards trial because at the time, neither side had formally moved to stop it. Musk's attorney said the trial should be adjourned to leave more time for Musk to secure financing. Quote, Twitter will not take yes for an answer, said the court filing signed by Musk's attorney. Astonishingly, they've insisted on proceeding with this litigation, recklessly putting the deal at risk and gambling with their stockholders' interests. Well, I kind of think Elon Musk recklessly put it at risk by not doing his due diligence before he offered, then getting cold feet. Oh, there's a bot problem when he knew there was a bot.
Everybody knew there was a bot problem. This is not like headline news at this point. It's like, come on, Elon, you knew that. Everybody knows that. There's a lot of astroturfing. It's coming from all directions on Twitter, and it's the case with all social media.
Absolutely. And keep those super chats coming. I see them. We'll read them at the end. Really appreciate it. So I don't want to get into the process, whether he's going to successfully buy it or not. I don't know. This could drag on for a while. But I want to get into the whole censorship thing because I'm not for censorship, but I do think, and this is also your wheelhouse, there's genuine questions of what Elon Musk is going to allow because he's known to be hands-on. At Tesla, SpaceX, he's not going to just delegate. He's going to be heavy-handed if he's the CEO of Twitter, and it is interesting to me what he will allow. I'm not talking about misinformation kind of stuff. I think that's just going to run rampant like it already does. But you have stuff, Colin. If we could put it up, you now have Trump openly, basically putting out death wishes against Mitch McConnell. I don't know if you saw this on Truth Social, Tina.
Yeah, Truth Social, yeah.
He's, for whatever reason, was unhappy with Mitch, who I don't have any love for. He's a fucking scumbag. But at the end, he said he has a death wish, all caps, must immediately seek help and advice from his China-loving wife, Coco Chow. Outside of the just gross racism, I mean, this is no longer like a wink and a nod. That's a clear incitement of violence. And you're seeing more of that in just basically.
Oh, you 100% are. So I will say this. When Elon first made the offer to buy Twitter, there was an explosion in all of the right-wing Telegram chat rooms about it because they all believe that Elon will allow them to bring their accounts back online. So I'm talking about hardcore Nazi accounts. And they were all talking about it. So they do believe that. And a couple of them even tested the waters. Like they were saying, hey, I just created a new Twitter account. Let's see if I get banned. Let's see if I can, go say some racist dog whistles, harass a few folks and see what happens. My thing is this. I don't think this is a censorship problem per se, right? So if you are running a large social media platform, you're a private corporation. So it's not about free speech. Nobody's interfering with your right to say things on a private platform. That is an agreement you have with the government. It's not the same thing. I do feel that Twitter, Facebook, all of these companies do think they have an obligation to keep the bullying and the hate speech at a low roar because that does affect their business model. Nobody wants to stay on a platform where they're getting death threats and harassment all day long. And before they started putting these policies into place about hate speech, let me tell you something. I almost left the platform more than once because of the amount of Nazis coming into my comments and saying really horrifying things, posting nooses, using the K word, using this word, using that word. Why would you stay on a platform where that's just becoming normalized speech, right? So I think early on they realized they had a problem and wanted to do something about it. They didn't want it to affect the bigger accounts, right? So you had celebrities that were outwardly saying, I'm leaving the platform now because I'm tired of racist speech being thrown at me and you guys not doing anything about it. So it's a balance. Now, does that mean that a corporation should be left in charge of quote unquote censorship? No, of course, they're also going to censor things that they don't like. That's problematic. So it's definitely a dance. It's definitely a balance, but it's understandable to see why they created some of these.
Well, I want to drill down more specifically on the violent rhetoric. One more. Colin, if we could play Marjorie Taylor Greene from last week.
We're all targets now, though, for daring to push back against the regime, and it doesn't stop at a weaponized legal system. I'm not going to mince words with you all. Democrats want Republicans dead, and they've already started the killings. An 18-year-old boy was run down by a Democrat driver who confessed to killing the teenager simply because he was a Republican. Even right here in Michigan, just last week, an 83-year-old woman was shot in the back for advocating for the unborn. Yep. Joe Biden has declared every freedom-loving American an enemy of the state. But under Republicans, we will take back our country from the communists who have stolen it and want us to disappear.
So the communists, because Biden was known to hang out with Che Guevara. So what's to me, I really think that Elon Musk's version of what should not be allowed is a direct, hey, go get your guns and let's go to I don't know, name your politician's office. But that's generally not the rhetoric that is actually leading people to do that.
Right.
Right. After the Mar-a-Lago raid, somebody attacked the FBI office in Cincinnati. Another man in Pennsylvania was arrested for threatening FBI agents. I think after Trump, a new report just came out that after the Trump raid, the mention of civil war went up like 1,000% or something like that online. So the point is, stuff like that, to me, it's not even a wink and a nod. She is inciting violence.
And she's ignoring the boatloads of right-wing violence that have happened, obviously. I don't know the story that she's discussing about the
3,000% mention of civil war went up. Thank you. Wow, yeah. I looked into the two stories she's talking about. They're both cockamamie.
I figured they were, but because I know about them, I'm thinking. But the point is, Heather Heyer, are you serious? Marjorie, when have you ever said two words about James Fields and what he did to Heather Heyer? Oh, nothing? That's right. That's right. Like.
But I don't know, Tina. I mean, if you call for anything to be removed, people attack you as you're pro-censorship. But to me, is if Elon Musk allows stuff like that, then people are just going to one-up each other. I mean, and you're going to
race. You're correct.
You're just gonna have Republican politicians, the Steve Bannons of the world. It's going to get to the point where they're saying, "Hey, load up! They're coming for you." And to me, that is an incitement to violence and should not.
It is absolutely. It's an incitement to civil war. It's an incitement to violence, and I don't think it makes sense to not have policies in place that try to keep that tamped down. We've already seen what can happen when it's not. Like that's very clear. I mean, Charlottesville is just but one example. It's just but one example.
Well, you also I mean, I have no love for CNN, but you also had somebody sent like a smoke bomb in the mail to CNN. And that person, they found he was a Trump supporter, this and that. Obviously they're sickos, bad rhetoric or not, but a lot of these people who then take the action, in many ways, they feel like they're being talked to. They're being given like, hey, given the green light to do this. Yeah. You got Ron DeSantis is creating an election police unit, which sounds a little like what drug cartels do in Mexico. They send them to the polls. So I think it's a slippery slope.
Let's be clear, they don't care about actual election integrity. They just want to win elections.
Right. And I think it's beyond a slippery slope. And I think Elon Musk and free speech absolutists are going to say, well, that stuff, unless somebody's literally telling you go commit violence, that stuff should be allowed. Well, if you want to allow that stuff, okay. But then when there's an increase in political terrorism, so I think it's very murky. I also think it's kind of
murky. There's nuance here, and a lot of these folks don't want to actually acquiesce to the fact that there's nuance here. Also, what makes them think a tech billionaire, is going to care more about censorship than Twitter does per se? It just doesn't make sense.
Well, also, it's kind of laughable, like the Glenn Greenwalds and all these people who think Elon Musk is going to be better than what Twitter is now. No. Elon Musk loves free speech so much, he literally censors his workers from unionizing. Right. He has, when media has written critically about him in the past, he tried to get them fired. He blocks people routinely on Twitter. With his workers, with
It's sort of
he's
like Peter Thiel going after Gawker. It's sort of has the same sort of feeling to it. Like these billionaires do want to, they want to control free speech. They don't necessarily want free speech. Like I
Right.
just don't see how people don't see that.
and also, if Trump is allowed back on, I mean, if he's running for president, I don't think it's a sustainable position not to have him allowed on Twitter.
I think they're going to have to let him back on if he's running for president again.
But the thing is, then we're just back into this nonstop news cycle of Trump's tweets on the hour, which I think CNN would love, MSNBC would love. It would jigger their ratings back up because you're going to bring back all those baby boomers who were glued to the TV during the resistance years. It's not good for
it's not good for.
They already don't cover real stories. None of them are covering 4 fires at Amazon facilities in a week. So yeah.
Or do you know we have a serial killer in Stockton? Have you heard about this?
No, I have not.
He's killing homeless people. They have a serial killer that's been killing homeless people now for weeks, multiple homeless people.
There you go. You would think that's something to cover, but I don't hear about it. So, yep, we'll see what happens. I mean, he could be owner of Twitter by tomorrow for all we know. But I think, Twitter's already a cesspool. Unfortunately, I don't think much could be done about, harassment and bullying because that's just Twitter. But
I agree. There's always going to be some of that. But I think what I was trying to get out is it was so gravely terrible before that it was threatening the actual survival of the platform. People were starting to leave. So it's understandable why they would want to do something about that.
Right. And I also think before we move on, there's another element here that is the shadow censorship that already exists on Twitter. It certainly exists here. Facebook. What makes you think an Elon Musk's Twitter algorithm isn't going to be tilted? Isn't going to be tilted. So let's say in a dream world,
tilted to the anarcho-capitalists. That's who it'll be tilted for.
Tina, let's say in a dream world we have Occupy Wall Street 2.0, or we have some type of general strike. You think that's going to be #1 trending on Elon Musk's Twitter? Fuck no. No, it's not.
Seasteading will be. They're like going to be advocating for things like seasteading.
Explain to the audience. No, I don't.
Okay. So seasteading is this brainchild of Peter Thiel that he had. Basically, the billionaires have decided if they create their headquarters out in the ocean, like so you build like a giant platform like you would for like an oil rig, you put your headquarters out there, you're no longer in the area of where governance can control you and corporate laws. So you can do whatever the fuck you want, basically.
I see. Interesting. Very interesting.
Seasteading.
Okay. I'll have to look into that more. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think all these platforms are a public utility. They should be regulated by government. That has a slippery slope too, because obviously our government is a corrupt fucking cesspool too. But I really think we've already seen it. And by the way, Twitter, there is a lot of problems. I mean, these now disclaimers now, this might be sensitive content that, might trigger your emotions.
I saw that. Wait, that's really funny, actually.
It's becoming very snowflakey. There is issues with Twitter shutting down things that they claim to be conspiracy theories that are later proven to be right. So
yeah, no, I mean, there's no perfect thing here. Like, no matter which way you look, there's going to be problems, and there's good and bad on all sides. My point is that we have to look at this from a more nuanced position and try to find our way through it.
Yeah,
I don't think there's any hardwired response to this that makes sense across the board. I just don't.
I agree.
And believe me, this is something I've thought a lot about because I am a First Amendment person all the way. I think the First Amendment is something that we should all be willing to fight for and die for. It's like one of the few things that our government got right when we set everything up. It is tantamount to having, holding power in check. Like that ability is just enormous, and not every other country has that ability. So, having said that, though, do we let a bunch of Nazis go around like threatening people? I don't think so.
Great segue. In about a half hour, Tina will be hosting Right Wing Insanity Report right here. You don't even have to go anywhere. Right when I leave, it goes right into the show hosted by Tina. What's coming up today, Tina?
So today I wanted to take a look at basically we've seen an uptick in the right-wing extremists, Proud Boys, whatnot, trying to infiltrate school boards, showing up at school board meetings, harassing parents, showing up in school districts that they do not have children in, do not live in. They're just traveling around doing this, right? Trying to influence policies. So I sort of am going to highlight some of the places where that's happened. And I have a very special guest that came on that was willing to talk to us, who is a parent of a trans teen at one of the school districts that's been dealing with this. And she talked with me through the whole experience that she's having with that. She recently had one of her videos put on Libs of TikTok on Twitter. Yeah, so tweeted out about her child. It was really horrifying. Her young child got death threats from some of these folks. So basically, I'm taking a look at that area where you have just right-wing extremists. And not only are they showing up at the school board meetings, some of them are even running for school board positions.
Oh, wonderful.
So, yeah, I know.
Good.
I mean, so it's sort of this whole mandate, I think, post-January 6th, right? This whole national implosion. A lot of them are looking to act more locally, right? Their new mandate is, I'm going to get involved in local politics and things that are going on around
Well,
here.
they could take over the schools and, teach that wonderful day, compare, January 6th to, the 4th of July. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
all right.
I mean, we even had one school board where they all literally went into hiding somewhere and resumed the meeting on Zoom.
Good.
And the school board president is basically saying we're having to hide now because the adults can't have normal conversations at this point.
No, I look forward to it. I'll be walking my dog and listening to Right Wing Insanity Report. And by the way, you are not allowed to leave when I leave. Everybody's got to stay and watch it. It's great. Smash that like button. I feel like people are smoking doobies in the super chats because the super chats are coming hot and heavy. Next topic. We couldn't fit it on the bottom screen. It just so happens, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, Tina, but right when Biden dropped this great news of pardoning federal marijuana offenders, Washington Post dropped that federal agents believe there's enough evidence to charge Hunter Biden with crimes. It's from the Washington Post. Federal agents see chargeable tax gun purchase case against Hunter Biden. Federal agents investigating President Biden's son Hunter have gathered what they believe is sufficient evidence to charge him with tax crimes and a false statement related to a gun purchase. According to people familiar with the case, the next step is for the U.S. attorney in Delaware, a Trump administration holdover, to decide on whether to file such charges. The investigation into Biden began in 2018 and became a central focus for then President Trump during his unsuccessful 2020 re-election effort. Initially, the investigation centered around Biden's finances related to overseas business ties and consulting work. Over time, investigators with multiple agencies focused closely on whether he did not report all of his income and whether he lied on gun purchase paperwork in 2018, according to people familiar with the situation. Agents determined months ago that they had assembled a viable criminal case against the younger Biden, but it is ultimately up to prosecutors at the Justice Department, not agents, to decide whether to file charges in cases where prosecutors believe the evidence is strong enough to get a conviction at trial. Given the intense political interest in a criminal probe involving the son, Attorney General Garland has made clear that the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, David Weiss, who was nominated by Trump, is supervising the case. A lot of interesting things there, Tina. First of all, I find it odd that they don't feel they have enough evidence of financial crimes. I'm not a RICO expert, but this guy was sitting on a board getting $50,000 a month from a Ukrainian gas company. I don't believe he's, a scientific genius
that's incredibly fishy. We've long talked about that. Listen, I have mixed feelings here. I do think the timing is a little funky. I don't disagree with you on that. But having said that, it wouldn't shock me that they do have ample evidence. And if they do, they should prosecute him.
Oh, no, I agree. But again, the tax fraud thing, they might charge him if he gets convicted. What are we talking? 6 months maybe in jail.
Minimal.
Not like
He's
a major
rich
thing.
Kid. He's not going to. Yeah, exactly.
So to me, I find it interesting. They might genuinely not think he committed crimes, but I find it interesting that they don't feel they have anything very shady dealings in Ukraine, very shady dealings
Right.
in China. There's other journalists who have done a lot more investigating on this than I. But yeah, it seems like if they convict him, if they charge him, it would be for lighter stuff, and then kind of look the other way, saying, "Oh, maybe it was untoward how he was,
Right.
leveraging
Also, what
leveraging
about
his."
the laptop? Did anything come of that? I haven't followed that story until kind of tuned out of that one. Is this related at all, I wonder?
It could be. They might have evidence based on what's on the laptop. I mean, I didn't think the laptop was, like fucking Watergate, like some people thought.
Was it
the
Project Veritas that did that whole like crazy? I'm trying
But
to remember now.
listen, there is valid questions because text
Oh, I agree.
messages did come out between Hunter Biden and some associate talking about the big guy, and the big guy gets his cut. Obviously, we know the right wing is claiming Joe Biden is the big guy. I'm not going to say
Might
that.
not be.
Right.
That actually wouldn't be my first instinct. I wonder
Who
what
would be
is
the
that.
big guy then?
Like, who's the big guy? I don't know. I'd like to know.
Well, obviously, the right wing jumped on that. That's
Oh,
Biden.
100%.
He's getting kickbacks in his son's deals. I mean, Biden's a rich man. I don't know why he would need that. But
Yeah.
if that were true, that would be a major presidential scandal, kind of on the level of Nixon to me. Yeah, most of that would have been before Biden became president, but if they
Right.
had evidence that Biden was somehow getting a cut of things while he was a senator, while he was a vice president, that would be huge. But
Right.
do I think they might charge him? Yeah, just to kind of prove that no one's above the law. If they charge him, I don't see this being a long prison sentence. The gun charge
Oh, I don't
seems
see it being a long. These seems like pretty on the scale of large felonies. These are not them, but honestly, they should also be going after some of the Trump family members, not just Trump.
Oh,
for their
wait!
fighting-
I got the story teed up. Jared Kushner's $2 billion Saudi Arabia check appears even more comically
There you
corrupt
go.
than previous thought. So it's not just Hunter Biden, even though the
No,
right
it's
wing,
all of them.
yeah, they're all fucking corrupt. Jared Kushner, frankly,
the plutonymy is going to plutonomy.
yeah, Ivanka and Jared made out like bandits, and
100%.
somehow, as Saudi Arabia is basically pillaging the world
Right.
oil supply, Jared Kushner is getting $2 billion from his friends in the empire. So, yeah, I'd like to see Hunter Biden charged. I think he did things that should be illegal if they're not illegal. I think it would send a message that, yeah, you can't just,
Right.
use your political
Position.
plutocrat
Yeah.
father or mother's position to go around the world and do untoward things. Obviously, it's different. Chelsea Clinton, for example, had many opportunities due to her parents. I don't know if that bordered into anything nefarious or illegal, but this is not just Biden's kids. Kids of politicians all over the place are doing borderline illegal things or straight illegal things. We haven't even gotten to Don Jr.,
Right.
Eric. So we'll see. But I will say the fact that this report came out, the first fucking thing the Republicans are going to do if and when they retake the House, it's going to be Biden. It's going to be impeachment hearings or investigations into Hunter Biden. They will be at the level of Benghazi a couple years ago.
Probably, yeah.
There is some validity to it, but that's going to become their.
But they always take it to this ridiculous extent because they're really not. They don't care about justice or actually keeping unbiased legal. A world in which everybody is tried and convicted equally on the same footing. They're not interested in that world, right? They're interested in politicizing crime, right?
Right.
But so are the Democrats, to be fair. I feel like so much of our law enforcement has been politicized right now, and it's really dangerous.
I don't think the Trump classified documents thing is politicized because if you look through the process.
No, I think Trump, I don't think that is at all. I agree with you. He is in deep water, and he should be over that.
I mean, they tried everything in the book to get him to return the stuff. They issued subpoenas.
Oh, I agree.
They wanted to keep it private. So, Trump should be prosecuted too. But the thing about Hunter Biden is it's just the right wing is so good
Yeah.
at just distracting from how they're actually screwing their base.
Oh, 100%. I don't
Because
disagree.
make no mistake, 2024 comes around. If it's Trump, if it's DeSantis,
Right.
if we have a recession before then, it's going to be rinse and repeat. Well, let's give a massive tax cut to our donors, wealthy people, corporations. The growth that will offset, the loss in revenue, trickle down. And if it's Democrats, maybe they won't do such heavy tax cuts, but they'll nibble around the edges, little programs of tax incentives, this and that,
Right.
while giving their donors all sorts of goodies. So we live in the United Corporations of America,
Yep.
and this is what you're going to get.
Completely co-sign.
Speaking of the United Corporations of America, I don't know, Tina, you were talking about maybe the media should be covering a serial killer killing homeless people. Maybe the media should be covering that there's been 4 major fires at Amazon warehouses around the United States in a week. Let me repeat.
Yeah, that's really bad.
In a week.
Obviously, they have safety issues.
Yes. So let's start with last night. There was a fire at the Albany, it's actually technically Skodak.
Albany.
Skodak, which is right next to Albany in upstate New York. This happens to be the warehouse that's about to hold a union election. So funny timing that there's a fire at the warehouse a week before the second ever union election for an Amazon warehouse. If we could show the Derek Palmer tweet, my heart goes out to all the ALB1 Amazon workers in Skodak, and I hope every worker was evacuated safely so that those images show. I mean, it was a major fire. They actually sent workers home, unlike the Staten Island warehouse, and it is unheard of. I spoke with a worker this morning from the warehouse. They closed down the warehouse for the day shift today. A worker that I spoke with, when she got there this morning, because workers went to work before they got the alert that it's closed, all doors were open, the fans were running at full steam, and you could smell the residue from outside. And what I was told is this was a compactor that lit on fire. That's what they used to break down the cardboard boxes. That's the same thing that happened at the Amazon in New York, which we're going to get to in a minute. Listen, I don't have any evidence, but it is interesting that this happens a week before the union election. Interestingly, they closed down the day shift, but they're having the night shift workers come in. And
my understanding, Jordan, is they don't receive their pay if this happens.
Actually, they did give pay for the day shift today.
Okay. Well,
They did
good
give
for that then.
They did give pay for the day shift today. So the one good thing Amazon's ever done. But they're bringing the night shift workers back. So I don't know how that works. That it's too dangerous for the day shift workers, but then at a certain hour, it's fine.
Okay. Are they trying to air out the smoke then with the fans? Is that what's?
Yeah.
Okay.
But if it's a major fire, that's going to take longer
days,
than
right.
But suddenly they're bringing the night shift workers back in tonight. So follow up. I want to show a little clip from this interview. I just happened to interview a worker from there before the fire because their union election is next week. One of the first things she said to me is the major reason that they're going even beyond just wages is safety. Let's take a listen.
As the longer I worked there, the more I saw the issues in the warehouse. Safety being first and foremost, injuries all the time. When a woman that I worked with was sent out and never returned, I think she had a head trauma that was just too bad for her to return to work. And so she basically never came back. I saw her once after the accident. And it's come to our attention that ALB1, the Amazon in Skodak, is the topmost number one when it comes to injuries, which not a great thing, right? So clearly there's something wrong with that picture. Number one. Number two, we are only paid $15 an hour in the warehouse to begin. I think it's like $15.40 they start you at. It's not sufficient. It's the job is really difficult. You're lifting heavy boxes all day. They expect you to do when you're packing, which is the department that I'm in, they expect you to be packing 60 boxes an hour, which is 1 per minute.
Wow, 1 per minute.
Yeah.
That's wow.
But obviously, number one, nobody was hurt, so that's most important. But and that our full interview is up on the channel. We posted it this morning, so watch the interview. But another thing she said is they think they have a shot to win, but there are still some people on the fence. Well, a major fire might move them off the fence and say, maybe we do need a union here. And the fact that they're bringing people back less than 24 hours after, I don't think the smoke is all gone, because I saw fire coming out of.
Yeah.
Right. So that was in Albany. On Monday, there was a fire in JFK 8, which was the Staten Island warehouse that won the election.
Right.
If you have that short video that shows some of that fire, Colin.
Evacuate! Let me go get my damn van! Yeah!
That was a fire out of a compactor. Two sources I spoke with there, two workers said that same compactor had lit on fire. There was smoke coming from it a month ago. Managers knew about it. Pretty sure Amazon could replace it overnight. They certainly have the money. And workers refused to go back for several hours because they could still inhale the smoke. If we could show that other video, I think it is, Colin, of workers.
Jordan, too, it's not just the smoke, it's what's in the smoke. I would imagine those compactors that they're burning materials that have chemicals and toxins in them.
Correct. So Amazon suspended nearly 80 of those workers who held a little 2-hour sit-in.
You got to be kidding me.
Yep, they suspended them. And by the way, there's video. It's not the best audio. We'll play it anyway. But there's video of a manager telling workers, if you don't feel safe, go home. If we could show that, Colin.
I appreciate your opportunity to color this video. I truly do. Ultimately, you're open and operating. I encourage you to go home.
This is protected activity. Right now.
I can't make any decision regarding that right now. What I can do is tell you, if you don't feel safe, please go home.
So what I'm telling you is that
this is slavery!
No. Fucking slavery, man.
It's hard to hear, but he says, I can't make any decisions, but what I can tell you, if you don't feel safe, feel free to go home. A lot of them did. Now 80 are suspended. It's crazy. I mean, the fact that this isn't even covered in mainstream media, like, hey, get back there. Yeah, if you get a little lung damage or you feel a little faint from the flames, too bad. We need to, that wine mom needs her yoga mat by the morning.
Right.
It's absolutely outrageous.
It is outrageous.
But we're, as a society, listen, tonight's Thursday. People will be watching Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. People want their products, lickety split.
Yeah.
And you heard somebody shouting, this is slavery. This is slavery. I mean, it's just absolutely obscene and nothing. I don't hear a damn thing from Democrats. I certainly don't hear anything from Republicans.
Oh, definitely.
I don't hear anything from Democrats, the party of the working people. Nothing. These workers are on their own.
So, but this is the unionized facility. So now is the union going to be able to step in and do something about these suspensions, I'm wondering?
Yeah, so they're going to be 100% filing charges with the National Labor Relations Board. But remember, Amazon has not recognized the union. They're doing their own version of like what Trump did with the election, and they've been unsuccessful. The NLRB basically rejected Amazon's appeal, which was ridiculous, that the election was rigged or something like that. YouTube, I'm not saying it was.
The Amazon Stop the Steal version.
Yeah. But it is important because you know, it's not getting a lot of coverage. I'm going to try to go up there on Monday to cover a rally. But this Albany warehouse, if they win, their election starts on October 12th, which is Wednesday. If they win, that would be the second unionized Amazon in just a few months. And we already have other warehouses, North Carolina, Kentucky, I think one other, has already started the process of trying to get the NLRB to allow a union election. At a certain point, if they get more wins, Amazon's going to have to recognize them. Sure, they'll then do what Starbucks is doing and start firing workers. And, you know, they've already begun firing workers that were a part of Amazon labor union. But it's just reprehensible. And maybe the media will cover it when, unfortunately, people die in these fires. And the other thing is, oh, I didn't even show you. I'm sorry. Colin, could you show Alabama also had two fires? So that article is at the bottom, Colin. So, yes, we are on fire again. Fulfillment center evacuated a week after first fire. So there were two fires in Huntsville, Alabama. I believe also compactors at Alabama. Compactors were the problem. On Monday night, employees in the Amazon fulfillment center were evacuated after a fire broke out within the warehouse. This is the second time the warehouse has had a fire reported in the past 2 weeks. The first was a week ago today. According to an employee at the warehouse, the employees returned to work last night. Our plant caught on fire again. This time it was in the same area, but it was a couple aisles over. We opened up Sunday night after being closed for almost a week. So they were closed for almost a week. You could still smell smoke in there. Half of the warehouse was off limits. So they were closed for a week and they come back and they can still smell smoke. Amazon in Albany closes for less than 24 hours and is bringing workers back tonight.
That's crazy.
I mean, they didn't give a shit about COVID
also,
either.
What is going on that all of their compactors are catching on fire? There's obviously a equipment issue here.
Well, the broader question is, what else is malfunctioning? We know that they apparently
They're
don't.
obviously not keeping things up to date. You know?
We know their warehouses don't believe in air conditioning. Well, scratch that. They have air conditioning for the executives in HR.
Not for the floor.
Not for the floor people. They're allowed fans to blow the heat back to them. But yeah, there's obviously problems. And I don't know, does OSHA exist? Is OSHA going to go into these Amazons and check things out? Why have OSHA if they're just going to allow this shit? Because people are going to die at some point. People are going to die. And people, by the way, have died at Amazon in the past. In the UK, there's been several incidences over the last decade. In America, there's been 2. So Amber Lee just signed up as a YouTube member. Woohoo! Woo-hoo! Thanks, Amber Lee. As a reminder, folks, we could only grow. You know, if I'm going to go up to Albany on Monday to cover the rally, again, the workers are a few days away from that union election. Costs money. I got to pay a cameraman, gas, all that. So please support us. StatusCoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. So I'll stay on this. Obviously, I'm talking to people at the Albany warehouse and the Staten Island warehouse. As you know, to Status Coup viewers, we were on the ground covering the Staten Island union effort for over a year before they won. So all these Johnny-come-latelys who suddenly are like, rah, rah, Amazon labor union, we were there from the start. That's when it matters, when it doesn't look like it's going to be successful, but you cover it anyway because it's important. So, Tina, in 2 minutes, we are going over to the right-wing insanity report. I can't wait. Ooh. But before then, let's read some super chats.
Let's read some super chats, yes.
Double K, $19.99. Thank you, Double K. Humorous, $50. Jordan, this is for the awesome truth that your show brings to the common people. I hope this helps on your impending road trip. If you look behind the scenes later, I will do my best to help you even more. Keep up the good work, my friend. Why, thank you for all your generous support. And Tina also, thank Tina. Humorous, $5. Double K, thank you so much for your continued support of a channel that is actually worth supporting. I love it when people leave super chats thanking the previous person for leaving a super chat. It's kind of like a collective commune here. I like it. Elisa, $5. Thank you, Double K and Humorous, for always looking out for independent media. This is the real deal. Double K, $49.99. Holy shit.
That's nice. Wow.
Love it. Humorous, $20. Thank you, Tina, for coming on our show. And everybody say thank you to Colin, because without Colin, no matter how good Jordan is at being a journalist, he could not do the job without calling Colin and the others to help him. Very true. Very true. Robert Pookie Ray, $5. Got a Status Coup shirt and the superb quality while supporting you all made it worthwhile purchase. Thanks. Hey, that's a good segue. Get over to the Status Coup store, statuscoup.com/store. Get your goodies in time for the winter. We got all sorts of shirts, United Corporations of America shirt, the Fossil Fuckers shirt, all sorts of good stuff. Also on the homepage, Colin, there's a roller on the homepage, right? Where people could get like hats and tees and sweatpants and all that stuff.
Yeah, just go to our YouTube channel and there's a little store tab and you can click on that.
Yes, so get your Status Coup gear. Double K, another $20. Love Colin. Thank you, thank you. Humorous, another $5. Anything that will silence the people the oligarchs will buy and own just to shut up. Funny how that money doesn't matter to them. Tony Dallas, $5. What the fuck is up with Amazon fires? Jesus Christ. There's efficiency and there is negligence. F. Bezos and his tacky outfits, gross. Yes, Cowboy Bezos. Go to space permanently. Amber Lee, welcome, a new YouTube member. Ali Brown, $4.99. So tired of the union busting, greedy corporate class. Thank you for giving space to the workers to speak. Absolutely. Humorous, another $20. We are the greatest union ever created on this planet. What happened to the solidarity of that union? Why is everyone fighting each other instead of the United Corporations of America, the cause of this cancer? That's why I'm saying people need to come together, stop fighting, organize, economic protests. Now, Tina, without further ado, excuse me, 1 second. It's time for the right-wing insanity report. Hey, Proud Boys are trying to become principals in a school near you. Tina, one more time, what can people expect for the next hour or so?
So basically, we're taking a look at the right-wing extremists, including many Proud Boys that have been going around and harassing school board members, showing up at school board meetings, harassing parents, and in some cases actually running for school board or board of education positions. And I also interviewed a parent who has a trans child at one of these schools that has been targeted by these folks. And so she talked to me about, the things that are happening with her. Just last week, Libs of TikTok took a video of hers and blasted it out to all of their hateful followers, and she was harassed for that. Her child received death threats at school. Somebody showed up and wrote in spray paint, "Pervs work here" on the side of the school building. So just, and this is happening across the country. So I'm going to take you all through some of the areas where this is going on.
Awesome. All right. Without further, don't go anywhere, people. Stay. Super chats are welcome. Support Tina. Here is the Right Wing Insanity Report, hosted by Tina.
Tina Desiree Bergen, welcome to this week's edition of Right Wing Insanity Report on Status Coup. This week, I want to take a look at right-wing extremists and school boards. We've been seeing a lot of right-wing extremists, including many Proud Boys, show up at school boards, harassing school board members, harassing parents outside. And a lot of the times, these are agitators that don't even live in the school district, let alone have children in the district. Their issues have gone through various renditions, from being anti-vaccine mandates to being against critical race theory. And the latest, obviously, is to be against trans rights, to be against, gay rights in general. There's been a lot of argumentation against pride flags, and it's something that's happening across the country. Part of this, I believe, is because there is now a mandate to go more local in the wake of the Capitol insurrection. We've seen a lot of legal fallout for working on the national level. So a lot of these folks have realized that they can affect more policy change on a local level, and that's what they're doing. So I wanted to highlight a few of these examples across the country, and then we're going to speak to a local mom who also absolutely works for the school board as well, or the school district as well, about her experience. She is the mother of a trans kid there, and she has been dealing with a lot of fallout from this. All right, so let's start off by going to a small town in Missouri. This is a school board meeting where a fight began on Facebook, where a teacher had displayed a small 4x4 pride flag in her classroom, and some Proud Boys saw it, some right-wing extremists saw it, and they started talking about it on Facebook and then took that into the real world. So this was reported on originally from Claire Goforth on Daily Dot. Residents of a small town in Missouri are up in arms over claims a local teacher displayed a pride flag in her 7th grade classroom. The controversy stemming from Facebook groups dedicated to matters concerning Camden County, Missouri, inspired at least one member of the Proud Boys in full regalia to show up at the school board meeting on Monday night. Over the last week, local residents have passionately debated in Facebook groups about whether it's appropriate for a teacher to display an LGBTQ pride flag. A local politician appears to have posed for photographs with the Proud Boys, was among the strongest advocates against the teacher specifically and displaying the pride flags in schools generally. So if you scroll down in the article, we can go to this Twitter embedded account, Charles Jocko, who actually has some photos of the Proud Boy that you can see there. One of the shirts that he was wearing on the back of the t-shirt is obviously yellow and black. Things that you need for happiness is a good gun, a good horse, and a good wife. So that is Missouri. Now I want to take you to another part of the country. Let's go to North Carolina. So in this North Carolina school board meeting, Orange County, North Carolina, you have one speaker that shows up dressed in full Proud Boy gear. Not only does he have Proud Boy gear on, he has a black gaiter covering his face. And his point was to speak out against critical race theory. Let's play that video.
I'm talking about math. It's because the focus is not on math. The focus is on other topics like racism and other political agendas.
Ms. Snipes, I'm sorry, your time is up. You need to sit down or you'll be asked to leave the meeting.
Okay.
This is your you're done. Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Snipes, I'm going to ask you to leave the meeting now.
The agenda tonight was to address harm caused to students by incidents of hostile and racist behavior. So I'm going to speak on that.
I can't let you speak on this. You may speak about Math 180.
Thank you for exposing your communist ways, just like BLM.
Mr. Wicker.
BLM is an organization founded by Marxists.
You may not speak about
goal
this.
Is to destroy America.
I'm going to have to ask you to leave the meeting now, Mr. Wicker. Mr. Wicker, you need to leave the meeting. Thank you.
Because what happened at Orange County High School, there was only...
I'm sorry, you may speak about Math 180 or I'll have to ask you to stop.
Let me speak on this thing.
Speak about an agenda item. When we get to that item, if you will
one chance.
Agenda item you would like to speak about.
One chance.
No, sir. You may tell me which agenda item you would like to speak on.
This is what I'm speaking on. One chance.
Which one would you like to speak on?
I am speaking on, critical race theory.
No, sir. I'm sorry. You can't speak on that tonight. You're welcome to stay with us.
Well, give me an agenda item I can speak on.
Sir,
give me an agenda item I can speak on.
You can come back to you can speak about actual agenda items.
You know what?
But I can't make one up for you.
Look.
So you can come back when you're prepared to speak on that.
Look, listen, we're all parents here.
Thank you, sir.
We all
Thank you,
want
sir. We're done. I'm going to ask you to stop speaking now.
Give me an agenda.
Thank you.
This, folks, is a manifestation of critical race theory in action.
Okay, Ms. Schmidt, you have to stick to math mandates or I'll have to ask you to stop speaking.
By lies and truth.
Ms. Schmidt, this is your last warning. If it's about math, you may continue.
And safety.
All right, so that was Orange County, North Carolina. Obviously, he wanted to talk about how BLM was racist, how critical race theory is bad. This was not on the agenda. They were so when you come in to speak at a school board meeting, you have to stick with the agenda items, which was a math subject. So, but this is typical of what we're seeing around the country. Another thing that is happening is the use of the word groomer. You're hearing this a lot: pedophilia, groomer, kill pedophiles. Groomer is basically a word that they're using to describe anybody that supports gay rights or anybody that supports trans rights. So they're saying, trying to make this conflation that if you want to support children that are going through a process of coming to terms with who they are sexually, if you support them or are kind to them or give them any sort of reassurance, that means you're grooming them to be, I don't know, something. You're a pedophile and you're going to groom them to be something. So it's a very derogatory term. It's not what's actually happening. A lot of these kids are in need of support and need of emotional support. That's what the parents are trying to give them. That's what the school boards are trying to do, is create inclusive environments for them so that it's a safe place for them where they can be themselves and learn to love themselves for who they are. Trying to stop somebody from being who they are actually isn't going to change that outcome. It's just going to make them miserable. And in many times we've seen, suicide attached to that. So it's unfortunate that these right-wing extremists care little about the well-being of these kids. They've convinced themselves that they do by their hate-filled screeds, but the reality is that's not what's happening. All right, so I want to go to Miami-Dade because Miami-Dade, Florida has obviously always been a hotbed for this type of anti-gay rights stuff. We had the Don't Say Gay bill that passed through the school board, but let's look at some of the actual school board meetings that are happening. All right, so this was the first meeting in which we have video from the outside from two angles. We have a bigger angle of where you see more of the right-wing extremist Trump supporters, whatnot coming in, and then also some Proud Boys that showed up. So let's play the first video. All right, so that was the general viewpoint. Now we have a second video where you actually see the Proud Boys approach the person filming, calling them the F word.
How nice. Nazi Proud Boys.
Yeah, how nice. Get that gay shit out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and then I specifically wanted to zero in on a Capital 6 insurrectionist that has been very active in this area. Miami-Dade has showed up to multiple school board and city council meetings. His name is Chris Barcenas. Let's play that first video where he's talking about a little bit about what he thinks, and then it transfers into the actual meeting.
Check out this little guy crying about who knows what.
Chris Barcenas. Oops. Careful.
Hello.
Hello,
Hi, I'm Chris Barcenas. My major issue with this bill is that it adds this whole indoctrination that's going on in the school system, where kids are being sexualized, they're being demoralized, and they're being perverted. Furthermore, that there's, through the University of Miami and other health services, they're offering LGBTQ plus services and a gender-affirming care, which is procedures where they take kids and they give them mastectomies, they change their genitalia, and I feel like this is leading in that direction where kids go to school, they're being persuaded to, go off of their feelings on how they feel a particular day, and then from that point, they get moved over to the healthcare system where they're going to be essentially mutilated. And I think it's a very bad thing for the community, a very bad thing for the world. And it's part of this big left-wing social experiment that is going to end very badly. So, I don't think it's right. And that's something, sexuality should be something left for the home, not for the school. Furthermore, the next thing that the LGBTQ agenda wants to go after is MAPS, which is a minor attracted person, which is a pedophile. They want to rename them and, start giving these people, make them a special class of people. So it's not right, and it's happening in other more liberal areas. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Rocio Soto.
I don't even know what that word salad is, half of it, but basically the idea that school boards are getting involved in gender assignment surgery is just absolutely ludicrous. Obviously, it's a hate-filled screed. He doesn't know what he's talking about. It's full of disinformation, but it's fairly typical of the speeches that you see at these school boards. I now want to go to Norwalk, California, where local journalist Vishal Singh covered multiple, and I do mean multiple of protests that happened down there. There was a Planned Parenthood reproductive clinic that was going on that had absolutely nothing to do with abortion. Planned Parenthood has long gone and done, sex education and reproductive clinics in high schools and whatnot. None of it has to do with abortion. It has to do with your sexual health and well-being, understanding your body, and understanding birth control. Like, it's got literally nothing to do with abortion, but that doesn't stop these guys from showing up and saying that it does and claiming that they were putting in an abortion clinic in the high school, which is just absolutely not true. So let's cut to some of this video.
A real Nazi right there. That guy's a real Nazi.
It's good that you're here, though, because if your mama aborted you, you wouldn't be back,
Biggest Nazi I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Black.
Woo-hoo!
Black.
Yeah. Show these signs. Show the signs of the babies you guys like to kill.
Nobody's killing babies. I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. Also notice the sign in the background where it mixes vaccines in with abortion, because again, all of these issues have conflated into the same right-wing extremist agenda here. Most of these folks are not from the Norwalk School District. I want to keep reiterating that because I think it's important to know that these guys are coming into school districts where they do not have kids at the school, and they want their say on these things. They're not stakeholders, though. It's ridiculous. All right, let's go to the next one, where Vishal is talking to Louis Flores, who is a Proud Boy member, a longtime Proud Boy member here, local here in Los Angeles, who's been involved with multiple political violence. But he brings up, if you recall, one of our very first episodes of Right Wing Insanity Report, we had Vishal on to talk about the time where he was punched by somebody covering an event, and where they tried to say that he was the guy that instigated the violence. So Luis Flores brings that up here because he's there at the Norwalk School Board meeting. So let's watch that.
Hey, Michelle, how did it feel getting knocked out? Like that one time you tried to throw a weak punch. You got laid out. Like, you literally got laid out, bro. Yeah, I mean, you went like this, and then that dude.
Did you give it your all, though?
You ever thinking of like joining an MMA class? Maybe lifting some weights? Stop taking them hormone pills you're on?
How does it feel to film brown people?
Okay, that's the same to you, my friend.
Well, I'm brown. I do protect all whites. They're black. Yeah, they're called Antifa. They're Nazis. Yeah, just nod your head. You can't answer that question. You love Nazis. Antifa Nazis, huh? Right?
You see all these Hispanic Nazis out here?
Oh,
bunch of Hispanic Nazis.
You gotta be ashamed of yourself.
Those are your words, not mine. I never said that.
What you do.
Oh, you know, don't lie. We read your posts. Don't lie.
Of course, you can read all my posts.
You love freedom.
You love using the word Nazis.
We love freedom. We like to work. We like to earn our money.
My words.
UBLM Antifa motherfuckers love handouts. Yeah, free handouts.
Adjacent to that is Ryan Heath of the Gavel Project. He worked alongside the Proud Boys to push disinformation in regards to the Norwalk Health Clinic. Let's play that video.
Everyone, this is Ryan Heath with the Gavel Project. I'm an Arizona attorney.
Or Alfred Adams.
Not a California attorney, but I'm here.
Gabriela Martinez or Alfred Adams.
Merida Unified School District to basically advocate against them opening a Planned Parenthood clinic right here in Florida high schools. And the reason that this is so important, it's not necessarily anything to do with abortion. I know that's a really hot topic right now. Everyone's fired up about abortion. But this issue, what's really important is the fact they're opening a gender conversion camp right here in the high school. And the reason I say that is because Planned Parenthood is the second largest provider of hormone therapy treatment for gender affirmation treatment across the entire nation. And they've actually admitted that on their website. This is the New York chapter, and you can go look that up. What's really interesting here, though, is they are trying to do this when our kids are most susceptible to peer pressure. They are putting this in a place where a child, a girl who is very susceptible to these types of issues, if you read Irreversible Damage from Abigail Schreier, she explains
hormones to children that are being used by the state to chemically castrate children. And there's no reason they wouldn't be providing those services right here on the high school campus. And that's why at the Gavel Project, we are so passionate.
All All right, so this is just not true. This is gender conversion camps is what he said in that video, that's what this is. Absolutely fucking not. I mean, it's ridiculous that these guys are continuing to promote this sort of disinformation. But, you know, they get all these guys riled up and they show up at these school board meetings and, you know, create all kinds of havoc. Now I want to turn to Los Alamitos, Seal Beach School Board, because in this particular situation, the Proud Boys and others showed up and they shut down the school board meeting and took it online. And I want to highlight some of that. The first clip is the school board member reading some of the comments. And then the second clip is where she literally says, we're in hiding right now.
Over. My first comment comes from Greg Herrera, Ethnic Studies and Social Justice Standards. What is the position of the board and the superintendent regarding the flyer published 2 times by proponents of the Ethnic Studies class that calls many, if not the majority of Seal Beach parents, right-wing extremists that are attacking our students? What actions will be taken to support or denounce this? Is the board aware of any threats against the school district and/or Seal Beach community in general by Black Lives Matter, Antifa, or any other group? If so, what are the specific threats, and to what extent have these threats shaped your support for the Ethnic Studies class? It appears that the poll in the Sun showed an overwhelming opposition to the course. In addition, many other parents are still not aware of the course, and it's very likely that a majority of these parents will also oppose the course. Given this, why is it necessary to approve all topics related to ethnic studies this year? What are all the reasons and explanations why this cannot wait until next year so the entire community can have a voice in this topic? Is the state of California, other governmental agencies, or any other third parties exerting pressure? Thank you for considering my questions.
All right, and so the second one is where she says they're in hiding. Let's play that.
I also think that we have to look at our community, because that's exactly what happened here. Our kids, we told them how to stand up for what they believe. And what happened, it is not, I love the world too, and I will die on the sword for democracy, but we are hiding in a room somewhere, because in our community, the adults could not be models of civil discourse. And so I think we do have to teach them how, and we have to recognize when we failed. So I think I absolutely agree. It limits, but
all right, so now let's go to Huntington Beach, which is a little bit deeper into Orange County, where we've had Proud Boys harassing school board member Gina Clayton Tarvin for a long time. This particular video is from a guy named Bay Skywalker, and so he has taken up to posting on his social media website these kind of sort of threats towards her. Let's play that one.
Make Gina Tarvin and these Marxists that are trying to indoctrinate our children uncomfortable.
Anyway, so that's just sort of a little background information on the subject. Again, this is something that's happening across the country, and it's something that we need to pay attention to because it seems to be the new battleground. Even though this started happening about 1.5 to 2 years ago, it's really ramped up recently. But that's not the end of it. What if I told you several of these folks are now trying to run for school board positions, including members of the Proud Boys? We have one here in Sacramento, Jeffrey Perrine, who has been a very violent Proud Boy, who has actually held a seat in the GOP Central Committee here in California. They removed him from that position after his ties to the Proud Boys and his political violence became more well known in the community. But that hasn't stopped him from now running for school board. So let's take a little look at who Jeffrey Perrine is, just so we can get a clear idea of his past and why this is concerning. All right, so the first video I want to play for you is he's speaking at a Western Placer meeting on 12/21. You see that he's wearing a PB hoodie, and let's just play that video. But Placer County, just so you know, is in Northern California.
People that pretend like you stand up for the kids because you want the paycheck, you want the cool name. You're president. Well, I'm president too, bro. We're both president of a group. Congratulations. And I'll be back in 2 weeks, bro. I'll be back every 2 weeks because I own my own business. I homeschool my kids, and I can do that because no one else signs my checks. You understand? We sign your checks. And you best bet I'm going to run a boatload of people against you guys.
All right, so he has been speaking at a lot of these meetings before he decided to run for office. I wanted to scroll down to another video of him that was taken in Portland back in 2018, where he's been to multiple times. So again, he's traveled around with the Proud Boys, but in this particular video, he's part of a group assault on a counter-protester where they hit him repeatedly in the head. So let's go ahead and...
Holy fuck! Hey, that's enough! That's enough! That's enough! Hey, that's enough! Hey!
All right, but that's not the only time he's been violent. Here's another video of him taken by Daniel V. Media, in which he basically is talking about taking immigrants' heads and smashing them into the concrete. Let's play that.
So we should be doing to all the illegals trying to jump over our border. We should be smashing their head into the concrete, handling business, separating them from their kids, making sure they're not with pedophiles and child molesters, people like the left. All we got to do is make sure that we don't put any of these kids near any Democrats, and they're going to be okay.
Fuck the commies! Fuck the commies!
Come on, Strauss, fucking do it!
And here we have Jeffrey Perrine with Roger Stone.
You can get the Stone Cold Truth by going to the Prudent Patriot. I urge you to subscribe today.
So let's take a look at what's happening directly now. So Ben Avery, who is his opponent running for the school board meeting, was at an event, and Jeffrey Perrine decided to show up and harass him and threaten him. So let's go ahead and play that video.
Just so you know, bro, you're scared of me for a reason, Ben. And I'm not gonna go away.
Well, let's go.
No. You think I'm scared of you? No, I know you are.
Yeah, let's go.
If you're calling me the Klan, Ben.
Let's go, man.
Call me the Klan, bro.
Let's go.
No, Rick, it's good. No. I know. You don't call me a member of the Klan.
Let's go.
Yes, I do. Well, yes, you do. SPLC supporting, BLM supporting. That's crazy, Ben.
Let's go.
All right, call me a member of the Klan. Why would Ben Avery call him a member of the Klan, you ask? Let's go to some of Jeffrey Perrine's Telegram posts. Now, on Telegram, as we've learned through the past 3 episodes, is where people go to just really spew what they think, because it is not monitored in the same way that other social media is. You're going to see much more extreme positions there. So I pulled up some of Jeffrey Perrine's Telegram posts so we can see how truly anti-Semitic he is. So let's show some of those. All right, so here we are looking at some of them. I mean, it's the anti-Semitism should be pretty obvious, but his account is unapologetically white. That's him. Here you see him say a C word a day keeps your appetite away. Super pure. This is what the local Antifa say about me. They even put up posters around my town. This is actually how we were able to identify that this was actually his account, unapologetically white, because he posted a selfie with him and his flyer. Good job there. You doxed yourself, Jeffrey. Anyway, for the record, yes, I know Trump is a Jew-loving bastard. I've learned that and will never support someone I have not fully investigated. Again, I think we've seen enough of these posts to know that I don't think it's crazy that Ben Avery called him part of the Klan. We get the point, right? All right, so let's also take one more look at something. Oh, actually, no, we already played that video, kicking a guy in Portland. All right, so that's Jeffrey Perrine. Let's move on to another guy that ran for school board in Haven, Kansas last year. He didn't win. His name is Josh Wells. But Josh Wells is also a bit of a white supremacist. A lot of these guys that are related to the Proud Boys, you know, they keep saying we're not a racist organization, we're a men's drinking group. But the reality is time and time again, you do see them posting, white nationalist rhetoric. We've seen videos of them now where they're standing in front of swastikas, where they're, showing up at White Lives Matters rallies. So, one of them, Kyle Chapman, who we talked about, runs the Proud Goy Telegram chat room. So definitely these guys are racist. So this is a story that came out in Raw Story about Josh Wells, who ran for school board last year. So the leader of the Proud Boys group in Kansas is running for school board despite pulling his kids out of public schools and promoting white nationalism. Josh Wells, the owner of Wells Home Repair and a candidate for school board in Haven, shared the manifesto of the white nationalist Patriot Front and identified himself as a former member of the anti-government Three Percenters militia in private messages with some teenage anti-fascists who later publicized the chats, along with his background and associations, reported the Kansas Reflector. Everyone say hello to white nationalist Joshua Grant Wells of Hutchinson, Kansas. We are advocates of white nationalism or of a pro-Western Christian theocracy with a protected white majority status, Wells wrote, whichever one is more obtainable. His social media pages are awash with racist tirades about Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and critical race theory, and he frequently shares sexist and racist memes, Proud Boy images, and threatening posts. I'm not a racist, Wells told the Eagles reporter during a 9-minute phone call. I'm not a white supremacist. But a follow-up written response, along with the information gathered by the teenage sleuths, undermined his denials. Nobody in the media business wants to acknowledge the fact that for well over a year now, groups of people have terrorized communities to the point where people are scared to leave their own property, Wells told the Eagle in a written statement. Those same people have become reliant on violence as intimidation towards whomever doesn't agree with their agenda. No one wants to be accountable for their own actions anymore, but by God, if a white Christian man decides to stand up for what's right, well, then you portray him to be a white supremacist. He defended the Proud Boys, who had numerous members arrested in connection with the violent January 6th insurrection, and insisted he would not drop out of the school board race. Anyone who actually knows a Proud Boy would be the first to tell you that we're all good guys and stand up for ourselves, our brothers and our family and the rest of the country, he said. Your reporter and I never spoke about Proud Boys. I informed her that I'm not a white supremacist. Nowhere in the form that I filled out, then paid the fee for candidacy, did it ask if I am a Proud Boy. It's irrelevant in the race. Wells claims to have been visited by FBI agents on January 5th, the day before the insurrection, and the teenage members of the anti-fascist Midwest Youth Liberation Front say he boasted that he intended to file paperwork to set up a Kansas chapter of the Midwest Nationalist Party to establish a white ethno-state. Following months of investigation, we have discovered Joshua Wells has held leadership positions in the White Lives Matter marches, the Proud Boys, and the Three Percenters, the group told Kansas Reflector. Wells' admitted goal of his new Midwest Nationalist Party is to establish a white ethno-state. We are not exaggerating of the extremism of his beliefs. Wells openly praises the death of Black people, spreads Nazi Germany symbolism, and thinks non-white people don't belong in America. All right, so I wanted to highlight that because, again, this is happening not just in California, it's happening across the country. So on that note, I want to turn to a interview with Megan Goebel. Megan has a daughter that is at the Ventura County School District in Conejo Valley, where they've been having a lot of extremists show up from outside of the district at school board meetings the last few months. Things are becoming more and more heated as things have become just more extreme. They had somebody post a photo on the Twitter account yesterday where somebody had spray painted "pervs work here" across the school board. So I'm assuming it's one of these right-wing extremists that painted that because, again, pervs, groomers, that's the rhetoric that they use to describe anybody that is for gay rights. So let's listen to this interview with Megan, and she can explain to us what it's like going through this firsthand. We're speaking with a parent at the Conejo Valley School District, Megan Goebel. You also work there for the school district, and you have a daughter, I believe, that's there attending school. So I brought you onto the show because I wanted to talk a little bit about right-wing extremism, how we're seeing a lot of right-wing extremists show up at school boards, how they are interfering with the meetings, how they're harassing, parents of children and students outside of the meetings. Their ultimate goal seems to be, it started, I think, with anti-vaxxer stuff where they wanted to end the mandates, not have requirements for wearing masks. And now it's morphed into this more nefarious version of being very much anti-gay rights, anti-trans rights. And I believe your daughter is also a trans individual. So talk with me a little bit about the background, because it seems like Conejo Valley is becoming sort of a hotbed for this activity.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks, Tina, for having me. I'm excited to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Megan Goebel. I have two girls in Conejo Valley Unified. I have a cisgender sixth grade daughter and a third grade transgender daughter. Yes, I do also work for the school district. I also am heavy into volunteering and sit on different advisory councils as well. So very involved with the school and have been ever since my youngest daughter Harper started kindergarten a couple years back. So yeah, I've seen it all. I've seen that whole exactly what you were just talking about with the anti-vax and anti-mask mandate. I mean, everyone, that was, the hill to die on for a long time. And it's definitely moved now to, as you said, anti-trans, anti-gay, all of it. And so we've had a storm of folks that have started coming to our school board meetings since the end of the last school year, so June of 22, that are coming in with all kinds of stories, all kinds of things that are made up and misinformation to try to scare everyone. And it's been a really rough couple of months. The last board meeting that I went to with my girls was in June, and they were with me for that. There was a proclamation made by the board during that month to recognize that June was Pride Month. And so we were there. There were tons of us there with our kids. We had pride flags. Everyone was so excited to be there. And this right-wing extremist group showed up as well and literally scared a lot of us away. I ended up having to take my kids home. They were following people to their cars. They were making comments. They were yelling at people. It was a really scary situation, especially when you have your kids there.
What do you think their ultimate goal is? Is it to just intimidate the parents? Is it to actually change policy in the district? Because it bothers me that none of these are actual stakeholders. They don't have children that go to the school district. They don't live in the district. They've been traveling around. They were down at Norwalk. They were down in San Pedro, Torrance area. So they've been traveling around doing this.
Yeah, I think, there's some very well orchestrated organizations across California that are you're going to start seeing a lot of the same faces and a lot of the same names at all of these different board meetings, exactly what you're saying. Because I asked at that board meeting in June with a lot of these parents and people that were there, I said, do you live here? Do you have kids here? And I would say more than 60% of the people I talked to said no, that they didn't, but they were just here because they were advocating for all kids. And so they're going around with the same narrative each time. I think their end goal is a couple of things. I think definitely that they're trying to intimidate. They're trying to get their people elected onto the board so that they can have, this extremist voice on their side. It's about control, I believe, at the end of the day. And then also, they think that going to board meetings makes the difference when it's actually all the way up at the state. There's really nothing, board members, superintendent, administration, hands are tied to follow the law. And so I think that they think that they can make change just by going there and spouting off. But the reality is they can't.
Right. So let's talk about the law for a second, because you're correct. We have protection laws here in the state of California. And I think they just recently became aware of that, right? Because this didn't seem to be an issue in the past. But this group tends to go from issue to issue to issue, kind of drumming up outrage, right? So I think trans rights is the next issue. Yeah. What are the laws that protect trans kids in the state of California?
So there's a specific one that I always kind of revert back to, and it's AB 1266. And what AB 1266 states is that students that are transgender or gender expansive that are in our schools are protected. And what that means is that if they come from a home that isn't affirming, so example, all these folks that are showing up at these board meetings and, trying to spout a bunch of misinformation, they have laws that are in place to protect those kids in the classroom. And so if a child comes and, leaves before winter break as one gender and comes back from winter break as the opposite gender, the teacher in that classroom has an obligation and a right to protect that student. But at the same time, as we know, students are, they're creative and they have broad minds and they want to learn. They're sponges. So if they see a tree that's outside with a cool leaf, they're going to bring that leaf into the classroom and say, Miss So-and-so, can we look this up? Can we check this out in a book? And can you tell us more about it? Same exact thing. There's no difference when it's a child. So they're doing the best that they can, but it's definitely not written in the curriculum. There's no gender education for any grades K through 5, but these laws are in place to protect these kids in the classroom so that if they don't have affirming homes, they can at least have a safe place in their school.
As it should be. Nobody should live in fear. And it surprises me that the party, the GOP, that is of this idea that, raise your own kids, we don't want a nanny government, is very angry about this. I think personally what I'm seeing is a lot of Christian fascism out there. We see a lot of street preachers, I would say MAGA churches involved with these protests. Do you think that that's accurate?
Absolutely accurate. We have one here locally in Newburyport called Godspeak, which is led by Pastor Rob McCoy. And Rob McCoy is one of those that is technically more of a politician than he is a pastor, but he uses his church for all things under that umbrella. And therefore, they have tons and tons of money. They can fund people to run for school board and for city council and for these different roles. And they can also help fund them to do things like, for example, at this last board meeting, they have private security people that were there with, earpieces and the whole thing, because they're the ones that need to be protected, right? So, so it's pretty crazy to see, how the church and all of that, even though there is a separation of church and state when it comes to school, is really trying to be infiltrated. And there's a parent that's here locally that's kind of heading up this whole initiative and trying to really fight for what he calls my kids' rights. And the reality is, in public school, your kids, my kids, every kid that goes to this school is going to a public school, which is for everyone. Therefore, to have my child who's transgender be able to see herself in the curriculum from which she learns only makes her a better student and the students around her better. So the fight is pretty...
No, finish, sorry.
Oh no, the fight is gross.
It's gross. Also, I feel like there's a bastardization of science here. A lot of these folks want to come from this place where they think they have science on their side, right? They think that biology is binary, right? That there's only two sexes, when in reality, there's a variance that happens in between, like you're male on one side, female on the other. And this variance in between. This has always been the case. Being transgender is not a new thing. It's been with man since the dawn of time. We even have some ancient languages, for example, that have third pronouns. So it's not something that is inconceivable or should be, in my opinion, should be seen as a disease or hated against or all of the other things that these folks are doing. But why do they feel like they need to inject themselves in this? Is it truly just their religious-based morality that's driving this, or is it deeper than that?
I think it's a combination, actually. I think that their religious belief system, because they like to say that being transgender is a belief system, but you choose your religion, you don't choose your gender. And I think that what they're trying to do is, by using that as their control tactic, that this is not what God would want and, whatnot. However, I have talked with several pastors at churches that say that God loves everyone and that that's not what this is about. Right. This is really about politics and control. And so when you're thinking about the way that they are coming at this with so much misinformation, and it's exactly like you said, gender, sexuality, all of those things are on a spectrum, right? It's not black and white. You could be a masculine presenting female, but not feel like you're in the wrong body. My child is a female presenting, assigned male at birth child who identifies as female and female all the way through. So if we try and continue to put, gender and sexuality into these boxes, that's what they're trying to do because it feels safe and controlled.
Yeah, I agree that it feels safe and controlled to them. But the reality is their biology is complex, folks. It is complex. You can be sexed with the opposite hormone to your brain in vitro at puberty, at both in vitro and at puberty twice. You can be born with variant degrees of both male and female sex organs. I actually grew up with somebody that had that, was born with both male and female sex organs. So it's complicated, and trying to turn this into some hateful religious thing is really disarming for me. I want to ask you about the Proud Boys for a moment, because they have been on the forefront of a lot of these protests. They show up, they travel around, they harass parents. It's their latest thing that they're involved in. They do security. And we also are now seeing some of these folks running for school board. We have Jeffrey Perrine in Sacramento that's currently running for a school board up there. We have another one on the East Coast, another one in Florida. So this is becoming a trend. I think part of that mandate came after January 6th, where they were doing these much bigger national things. They decided it was better to focus on local politics versus, trying to change the national narrative after having so many arrests made after the Capitol insurrection. So I think part of their mandate now is they're looking microscopically at what they can do locally, and they've been hyper-focused on school boards out of nowhere, it seems. Have you seen, on that note, have you seen any Proud Boys coming up to Conejo Valley and harassing people? Have they been part of the problem there?
Yeah, so I personally, at this last board meetings, obviously, because I haven't gone to the first two of the year just based for safety purposes, but this last one, Mario, tell me his last name. I forget. Thank you. Mario Estrada, who's married to a Proud Boy and also leads up Gays Against Groomers, came to our board meeting, which what that tells me is that there's an escalation taking place where these folks, and now, with the video that's gone and the horrific reporting that ABC7 did on this, it's taking off and it's gone viral. And therefore, that's going to spread further into that whole Proud Boy movement. And it's very scary to think that, they could show up, more of them could show up at our board meetings. It's a fear tactic, and they want to dominate the narrative, and they want to come in and they want to scare everybody. And unfortunately, when it gets to that level, when you're talking about Proud Boys, that kind of fear mongering actually works for people, especially like me, because it's a scary thought. I don't want to be injured or harmed, and I don't want anyone coming from my kids. And so that's where I feel like it goes from the narrative that Steve Schneider, who's the parent who's kind of leading this whole thing within our district, goes from, trying to protect his kids and, let parents parent, to this is no longer about let parents parent. This is about extremism and having them come to our board meetings and scare people.
So Steve Schneider, let's talk about him for a second. He does have parents. He is a parent with kids in the district. He lives there. So he does have a vested stake in the conversation, but he is intentionally inviting outsiders to come to the meetings and intimidate folks. Is he part of the Godspeak contingency there?
I think this is going to sound bad. I think he's the recent Godspeak puppet. And I say that because I feel like he was approached by some of the higher ups in the Godspeak church. So Rob himself, Amy Chen is another one, Bryce Eddy. There's several of them that have kind of latched onto him and made him their poster boy for this whole thing, because he got into conversations with some of the right people, so to speak. And so he has gone now and they are helping him. They're giving him a platform. He's been on Charlie Kirk's podcast. He's been on Bryce Eddy's podcast. He's been on Rob McCoy's podcast. He's been on Fox News. He's getting his 15 minutes right now. And he's well-spoken. He comes out, he comes across, but he's definitely being groomed, if we want to use the word properly. He's being groomed in order to, further their narrative and move ahead with it.
Has he had conversation with any of the other parents about how they feel about this stuff? I mean,
has Steve himself?
Yeah.
Or who? Yeah, Steve has tried several times to have conversations with me. He and I just went back and forth again online last night on social media. He's created a website called Conejo Alert. I believe it's conejoalert.org. It could be conejoalert.com, but he created this website to try and garner interest from people in the community to join him and be at these board meetings with him, and that he would be able to tell them all the things that they weren't hearing about and seeing, and the school board is lying to them, et cetera, et cetera. And so he reached out to me after the board meeting in June and asked to sit down and have a conversation with me. And the reason that I did not is because when he asked to do that, he was mic'd. So he had a mic on him. He had people around him. It was all for a performative reason.
Oof.
And he wanted to try and catch me. And so I knew that if I went and sat down to have coffee with him or have a conversation, it would be exactly that. His entire agenda would be to try and catch me in something. And so again, last night, so he has a Conejo Alert Facebook page as well. And he's now starting to infiltrate that negative and misinformation there too. And so I went back and explained to a parent who had commented on there that about just what you and I were talking about, AB 1266, and what the law is and the protections that it provides for students in the classroom. And he said, wow, he jumped on and replied back and said, wow, so you're finally here. Like, why did it take so long for you to jump in the conversation? I've tried to sit down and meet with you. Send me a DM. Didn't say, he was like commanding me to send him a DM to meet with him. And so I wrote back on the comment, which it's public, so anyone and everyone can see it, and took screenshots in case he does decide to take it down. But I replied back and said, after the circus that you've brought to my hometown where my kids go to school, like, you've shown me who you are. I have no hope for you.
Yeah, so plus he wanted to record you, which is ridiculous.
I'm not going to do it. And he talked about me on his live Instagram when he was at the school board meeting last week. And he's trying to catch me in something, and he's not going to, because I'm not doing anything wrong.
So what is his intention here, though? Is he just radicalized? Is he part of the January 6th MAGA crew? I mean,
I don't think so. No,
Okay.
I think here's what's happening. Tina, he's being indoctrinated. He's being, he's being pushed into this right-wing side. Do I think that he's always been on the conservative side? Absolutely, definitely. I think he was just an easy pawn for Godspeak and for these guys to come in and be like, look at this guy. He's their current puppet. And as soon as the election is over and all of this, they're going to dump him like a hot potato.
Yeah, Rob McCoy, I know, has been on Charlie Kirk. He's a big MAGA guy. You listen to some of his sermons and it's definitely political. I don't see how he can hold on to his tax-free status. Honestly, it's pretty disturbing.
Yeah.
But I do think you're right there. A lot of folks get sucked into the rabbit hole and it just becomes this vicious cycle where they become more radicalized. The more they hear, the more they believe things.
Yep.
I want to ask you, Megan, was there an initial something that happened that set him off?
Yes. So I guess back in December of 21, it was in his daughter's classroom, 3rd grade classroom, that a child had left before winter break as a girl and came back after winter break as a boy. Now, I am not going to, and you will never get me to say that I know what conversations took place between the family of that child that transitioned with the school. I don't have any idea what took place behind the scenes. I just know that that child came back to school after winter break as the opposite gender that they had left before the winter break. And in an effort to affirm the child, when the students in the classroom had questions, the teacher took it upon herself to go to the principal during recess and say, hey, there's this book that we have in the classroom. It's called Call Me Max. Would you be okay with it if I read this book to them to try and help them understand? Call Me Max, which I own the book, is an age-appropriate illustrated book about a child that identifies as a boy. There's one part in the book, I will be very honest, that I don't love, where it talks about how the parents made a mistake. Parents get their pants in a bunch when they've learned that they've made a mistake and someone's calling them out on it. That's fair. Yeah. But the rest of the book is very comprehensive. It's very easy for kids to understand. I read it with my own transgender child who was like, hey, this is a pretty good representation of the book. Like, this is, yeah. So read the book in the classroom. I guess Steve's daughter came home at the end of school that day and told him whatever she told him about there being a trans kid in her class. And Steve went to the principal of that school and told the principal that he did not approve of the fact that this was read in the classroom and that he wanted a heads up that something like that was going to take place. His argument is, I have to sign a permission form for you to give my child Tylenol, but I don't have to sign a permission form to have a book read about a transgender kid in my child's class. That's not okay. Well, that was in January. Eventually, over time, he was trying to find ways because he was angry. He wanted somebody to make him feel better and tell him that that was never going to happen again, which is not the case. It will happen again. And so he linked up with 2 parents that are also at the same elementary school. Their names are Sean and Carrie Bergeret. I don't know how to pronounce their last name. Sorry. But they're part of Godspeak. They're part of this whole group. And so they said, oh, come to a board meeting. We'll help you. We'll help you write the narrative. We'll help you with your speech. You get up in front of the board, you say all of this. Now, all of these are recorded. So you can go back, you can go onto Conejo Valley's website, find all of these board meetings and listen to all of his comments and what he said. And you can watch his story change. You can watch the escalation of the anger, and you can watch the people that start coming to these board meetings based on what they're doing by, basically like filling these rooms with these folks. So after that comment, a couple of weeks later in May, that elementary school was vandalized. Oh. And on the front of the school in red spray paint, it wrote, "Pervs work here."
Oh my God.
So people, I think, thought that it was Steve that did it. I don't think Steve did it. I think it was somebody that just heard about it that's part of that whole group that did it. But enough people thought that it was Steve that the police actually went to his house and searched his home and found that it, didn't have any evidence to prove that it was or was not him. But he's using that now as like I opened my home to the police. The police came into my house and looked at all my stuff, and I didn't do it and I didn't do anything wrong. Well, what that's done, and I can't confirm this, Tina, so this is part where I'll find out for you for sure if I can, but I think that the teacher from that class has actually left the district because of all of what took.
Yeah.
Now,
probably doesn't feel as safe as she used to.
Exactly. Now,
which is understandable.
Here's the icing on the cake. Steve pulled his daughter from that school and put her in another CVUSD elementary school, and wanted to, well, actually tried to guarantee, which he cannot do, that there would be no other LGBTQIA+ students in his daughter's new class. But he doesn't have any hate in his heart. That's what
yes, he does.
They just, I mean, it's unbelievable.
God, wait, so he's asking the new school to guarantee that there are no gay kids in his class? Are you kidding me?
Yep.
That's frightful.
Yeah, it's awful.
That is awful. He has no right.
He has no right. Zero.
Wow, the extremism in the country is really outrageous. It's just getting worse. So now some of these folks I'm understanding are running for school board in Conejo Valley that feel this way. Yep. Who are those folks and where are they coming from?
So there are three of them. You have Joelle Mancuso, and Joelle Mancuso is, she does not have any students in the district. She never has. She homeschooled all of her kids. And she is as extreme right wing as they come. Then you have Karen Meyer, who used to answer phones at one of the schools in Conejo Valley Unified and has 2 kids, but they are grown and they do not go to the schools anymore. She was definitely recruited. She is definitely a puppet. She is also extremely, extremely right wing. And it's not just about this topic in specific. It's about the books that we have in the classroom. It's about the books that we hold in our libraries, what's being taught, all of those things. And then the last one, which is by far the biggest puppet of them all, is Sophia De Domenico. And she does not have kids in the district. She does have young children. They just moved back to California from Texas, is my understanding. And she was literally just like picked because they needed someone to run in this specific area. And I've come into conversation with some of the people that are part of her team that are going out and standing outside of my daughter's elementary school on back to school night, handing out propaganda and these are her team members. And they believe that, that kids that are transgender don't have a place in the classroom. So they are all three of them, and they all three have their yard signs and all of their material that they're using for their campaign. It matches. It's all the same colors. It's all the same fonts. It's streamlined. They want to now here's the problem, Tina. The thing is that there are 5 seats on the board and 3 of which are up for election. If all 3 of those people win in those spots, which I don't think they will, I can't predict the future, but my hope is that they don't. If they do, not only do I already not feel safe, that would lead me to potentially have to pull my own kids out of the district.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. So is there some strong contenders running against them?
So we have 2 incumbents that are running against Joelle and Karen. So, running against Joelle and Sophia. Well, there's one. Okay, so Cindy Goldberg and Bill Gorbach are our incumbents. Those 2 already sit on the board right now. And then we have Lisa Powell, who's running, and she is, she's a social worker. She does educational, what's the word I'm looking for? She does research in schools. She's worked for LAUSD. She's had kids that went through CVUSD. One recently graduated. So she's part of CVUSD. This is where her kids went to school, and it makes sense. She wants to put back into the district what, the district gave to her kids. So her running makes complete sense. Cindy and Bill was a counselor for CVUSD and worked in all the different schools and had kids go through CVUSD schools. And same with Cindy. Cindy was a volunteer, PTA president. All of her kids went through CVUSD schools. So they all have purpose and reason for wanting to run for school board, especially here.
Right. It makes sense. I hope that reason prevails on a certain level. And so fellow parents that you've discussed these things with, what's the temperature there?
The temperature is that the ones that are showing up at the board meeting right now are the loud minority. We may be the quieter majority, but at this point in time, we're realizing that by them continuing to bring in more and more people from the outside to make their noise louder, there's going to come a point, there's going to come a head where we need to, I don't want to use the words fight back, because it's, to us, this isn't like we're fighting for our kids too. Like we're fighting for the public education system. They're trying to dismantle the public education system as a whole. Exactly. So, you know, I think that the temperature is that people are scared. From our side, they're scared. And sadly, it's because of people like the Proud Boys and Gays Against Groomers and the extremists that are coming to our board meetings at an increasingly fast rate, that they don't want to show up. They don't want to be there because they fear for their own safety. But we're trying to find ways, because now, especially at this last board meeting, we have a significant presence of law enforcement that's starting to come out to our meetings. And I think
understandable.
Yeah, we have some that, because right next to where the board meeting takes place is next to a huge soccer field. And they had plainclothed officers that were in that soccer field that were just ready to go. So they're upping their law enforcement presence, which I think hopefully in some way will help some of those who are scared to go to these meetings feel more comfortable to go. But we do need to start showing up more often, because we have to show support for the board that's there. We have to show support for those that are at home. And we also need to represent that middle ground of people that really don't know which side to side with because they don't have enough information.
Right. So this moral outrage that they're trying to manufacture isn't grounded in any genuine concern about anybody.
Yeah, I think of, you know, Mario, when he came to the school board meeting, and he had a hat on that was with an AR-15 and it said pedophile hunter on it.
And also a Proud Boy.
Yep, exactly. And so when you wear something like that to a school board meeting, which there's another person that wore a shirt recently, we don't need to get in on him, but when you wear something like that with an AR-15 on it, when after you're talking about Uvalde, when you're talking about Sandy Hook, when you're talking about all these different school shootings that have taken place, and you're referring to me in your comments that I'm the pedophile, is that a direct threat? Because it feels like it.
It's his version of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and the fact that they are calling you, the parent, a pedophile is fucking gross. Like, I mean,
yeah,
there's actual pedophilia in the world. Can we just focus on that? They're trying to, they think anybody what kills me is Mario's gay. So I don't know what's going on with his brain right here, but you know, he was also defending in my mentions like a week and a half ago, some actual Nazis from NS3131. They're Nazis, they're self-identified Nazis, and some local ones here, White Lives Matter. In fact, you've got a little hive of them up in Newberry Park.
Yep.
They, you know, I was like, Mario, these guys would see you hanging from a lamppost. When you're not around, they talk ill of you. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you defending these guys? They're not your friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't get it.
It's a very twisted time for sure.
Yeah. So what's next? There's a meeting coming up in October 11th, I believe is the next one.
So yeah, next meeting is October 11th. And at this point right now, if I'm completely honest, there's no plan in place on what we're going to do. I struggle with this a lot because I want to respect everyone's safety and anonymity and all of those things. At the same time, I feel as though we need a presence as well that's there. If anything, just not to argue or fight or make a scene, but to stand up and make comments at the dais that are factual and that are you know, in contrast to what's being alluded to, even though it's not the truth.
So they took a video of yours, you talking about your experience, your daughter, whatnot, transitioning, and they put it on Twitter, blasted it out to all of their hate-mongering followers. I'm going to call them that. You can see how horrifically mean and nasty these folks are. You know, so how has that been?
So, you know, initially when it happened, the first thing I thought to myself, without trying to assume, because my mother always taught me that assuming makes an ass out of you and me. But my guess was that because in order for content to be put out on Libs of TikTok, someone has to submit it to them, or at least that's the bulk of the way that they get their content. So my feeling was that somebody, probably from this group, submitted something from my TikTok, that this is where social media gets very frustrating, because it was one video of one portion of the story, And they're trying to use that as how my transgender child identified, which it's so much more than just a 3-minute video, but that's neither here nor there. So that video was submitted to them. They posted it. And in 24 hours, I received death threats. I received death threats against my child. I received hateful rhetoric. I received voicemails. I received text messages. I received comments. I received all of it. And it was a very dark 24 hours. It's all things that I've heard before. Now, I've been in this part of being an activist, not just for my transgender child, but for the entire queer community for 3.5 years. So there really isn't much I haven't heard and haven't been told or said to. It's when people make direct comments towards my child like that, that's when it hits home. So thankfully now, it was kind of like I was telling you yesterday, it was a flash in the pan. Like it happened quickly, the fire went and it kind of went out. I'm still getting some residual comments and things here and there. It's been about a week now, but it's really unbelievable to me the amount of people that just sit and troll those accounts and wait for videos like that to use that as an example of whatever fits their story for that day. And, I think about people like Erin Reed, for example, who's a trans woman herself, who is an activist, and the kind of things that she hears all the time. She's on Twitter all the time and providing tons of information. And she's recently started showing some of the messages that she's gotten. And it's just like, there's this part, yes, of wanting to dismantle public education. There's also this, if you are not a straight, white, male or female, you do not belong on this planet. And therefore, that's where the radicalization of exactly what you're talking about, the extremism of wanting to basically create a genocide for all of the queer community is happening. And it's horrifying when it's your child who's only 8 and this is the world she's coming up in right now.
All right, now I want to turn to Matt Welsh. Matt Welsh is a part of the media, and what role does media play in promoting these extreme viewpoints when it comes to school boards, groomers, and anti-gay rights? Matt Welsh is a perfect example of this. He is a guy that has some very extreme positions. Of course, like a lot of these folks, he says he's just stating the facts when indeed that's not necessarily the case. But Media Matters just uncovered some recent video in which Matt Welsh literally talks about grooming teenage girls. Let's listen to this video.
It is not. In fact, ever since the beginning of time, teenage girls have been getting pregnant. It used to be more common. The peak, ever since they started keeping records of these things, which they only started doing recently, like in the 20th century, but ever since they started keeping records, in 1957 was the peak for teenage pregnancy. 1957. Not 2009,
well, back
not
then,
today.
All of them were supposed to have kids. Like, that's when you had kids.
That's my point, okay? So to all of a sudden act like this phenomenon of girls getting pregnant at a young age that we consider young, 16 or 17, to act like it's a new thing is ridiculous. It's always been that way. Even biologically, and this is me just stating, right now I'm going to start by just stating facts. So fact number 1, it's not a new phenomenon. Fact number 2, in fact, it's a phenomenon that was more common earlier in history, and for the first 6,000 to 10,000 years of human existence, it was a normal thing. Fact 3, girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile.
Yeah.
Okay? That's biological. That's a fact, all right? I'm just stating facts. That's all I'm doing. But what happened recently, and this is the 4th fact, recently in the last 30 years or so, we decided that that's way too young to start a family.
Why?
And because now
divorce rates would probably go up, and once you're that young, you can't really make sure that you know.
No, girls are getting no.
Girls were getting married early, and marriages were lasting longer. You very rarely hear about like these relationships that go to their your diamond anniversary, your 50th anniversary, and all this. That's a dying breed of people out there.
Yeah, and those were all people that got married very young. That's why
they're still alive.
Yeah, that's why you can have someone in their 70s who's celebrating their 55th wedding anniversary because they got married when they were teenagers. So what I'm saying is that the problem is not per se teenage pregnancy, it's unwed pregnancy. That's the problem in society. It's only problematic when you are not married and you don't have the man there to help you take care of the kids because he's a coward. And the reason why we have that now are for 2 reasons. Because we have in current society, we live in the age of extended adolescence.
I I don't even know where to begin with this nightmare. Listen, Matt, nobody's saying it is a new phenomenon. That's not the question on the table. The question on the table is whether or not it's a good idea to get married when you're 17 years old. And I think as a society, we've progressed to the point where we see that that's absolutely not the case. We should not be marrying off our young girls into marriages. Again, this idea that you're saying that a 16-year-old, 17-year-old is, a full-grown adult capable of making those decisions, that she should be in a marriage that might not make her happy, that might be abusive. There's a whole host of things. I mean, if the peak of what you think is ideal is 1957, well, then you don't want to be for women's rights. You don't want women to have full autonomy. You want to groom young girls, teenage girls, into being the kind of women that you think that they should be. So having said that, what does Matt Walsh think the age of consent is? That's what I want to know. We found a second video. Let's play that.
If society was different and that we stopped insisting that you're a kid until you're 25 and we just deal with the reality that at about 16 you're an adult who is mature and can make decisions. You are that at 16. I don't care what anybody says. And if you're going to tell me it's different, well then how come for the first 10,000 years of human civilization that's the way it was? It's just recently where all of a sudden we're all retards until we're 25.
So now what kills me about this is Matt has been on the front line of basically calling people groomers, right? If you go to Matt's Twitter profile, you'll see him constantly saying that anybody that wants to be pro-gay rights or to help, young teens that are coming out of the closet, then you're the one that's actually being the groomer. Now he flips the switch and says, though, if you're a 16-year-old straight girl, now you're fully above the age of consent. You are an adult. You can think clearly. You can make those decisions, which we know isn't true. 16-year-olds absolutely are not fully formed adults when it comes to the way their brains function. That's the actual fact, Matt. So the reality is you are a hypocrite. You are fine if you think it's okay to, you're fine with people grooming young girls, which in many cases would be statutory rape or pedophilia. And you're just anti-gay rights. You're a hateful person. It's just as simple as that. All right, so now let's move on to some what the fuck comedy videos. I had to pull up this week because it just made me smile and laugh, but it also sort of fit with the theme. There's a guy running in Gilbert, Arizona. Well, maybe he's not actually running. Let's watch this video.
Gilbert needs dicks and butts. Loyal. Hard-working. A man of the people.
Right back at you, buddy.
Not a politician.
I'm dicks and butts, and I approve this message.
So that's Dicks and Butts, in case you haven't quite figured out what's going on here. Dicks and Butts is a satire candidacy. It's not real. All right, and then let's end the show at a Matt Getz rally. That's what she thinks of the real pedophile. All right, thanks for joining us this week on Right Wing Insanity Report, and we'll see you guys next week.